In this video, we're going to be looking at how to change a front crankset, and more specifically, how to change a Shimano front crankset. Because we at Real Life Reviews are firm believers that the greater your mechanical knowledge and confidence in that knowledge, then the more pleasure you're going to get out of your cycling. And also, clearly, the less mechanicals you're going to have whilst out on a ride or in a competition. However, before we get into the actual mechanicals, let's consider why we might want to do this. I think there are three main reasons. The first is simply to change the crank length. There could be any number of reasons for this. Probably the most common is you've adjusted your aero position, you're getting a little bit lower on the bike, your knees are crunching up a bit more, so you want to use a shorter crank just for comfort. Great. The second reason is the teeth on the actual front rings. They wear, so they're going to need replacing. And as they wear and when they are worn, they're going to have a detrimental effect on the chain as well. So your chain life is going to reduce. And then number three, for probably the more serious amongst us, you're going to want to change possibly the size of these rings depending on what you're doing. You might be on a 52-36, sort of mid-range, and you've got a sportif coming up or a competition that's particularly hilly, so you want to slot in a 50-34. You might even want to go the other way and go 56-39 if you've got a TT that's flat. So three main reasons for actually changing these front cranksets. First, let's look at the tools that we're going to need to do this job. I've always got a rag lying around. We're going to possibly need a plastic or rubber mallet or hammer. Ideally, we'd have a torque wrench, a relatively small flathead screwdriver, a 5mm Allen key, some bike grease, and the one specialist tool we're going to need is a Shimano Hollowtech 2 bearing preload tool. They're very, very cheap. If you can find one, a plastic one like that, it's literally going to cost you a couple of pounds UK sterling. Now, you can remove the back wheel to do this job, which leaves the chain nice and loose, or you can keep the back wheel on. If you do keep the back wheel on, then shift the chain into the two smallest cogs, front and rear. Little tip, keep the chain on the cogs for the moment, because the first proper job you're going to do is come around to the non-drive side and loosen the 5mm bolts. There we go, there's one and two, one either side. They don't need to come all the way out, they just need to be reasonably loose. Once I've loosened these bolts, I can then take the tension off the chain by pushing the derailleur towards the cranks and take the chain off the small ring and gently rest it against the bottom bracket. I then need my Shimano Hollowtech tool, and I'm going to slot it into the cap, still on the non-drive side, and loosen that cap off. It should be no more than a decent finger tightness, and it should come off quite nicely. There we go. Next up, I take my flathead screwdriver, and in the end of the crank arm here is what looks like a bit of a washer, and actually it's a little retaining loop, and I'm just going to flick that up. It's a bit of a safety mechanism for the crank arm. It stops it coming off. And we're now ready to hopefully just give the crank arm a little bit of a pull. Oh, beautiful. And it comes off nicely, beautifully greased, very easy to come off. Next, I come round to the drive side. If I'm really lucky, I can give him a little pull and he'll come out. If he's being slightly stubborn, take your rubber mallet or hammer, plastic hammer, go round to the shaft and just give it a gentle tap. There he comes, nice and easy, and just being careful not to drop the chain anywhere and scratch that beautiful carbon, and out he comes. As simple as that, and just rest the chain nice and gently on the bottom bracket. Before I fit the new crank, I'm going to make sure I've got no dirt or grit or anything on my axle there, and I'm going to put some nice fresh grease and give it a little wipe round. There we go. So he's going to, there, nice bit of lubrication. And fitting him is just the reverse of what I've done. So making sure the chain's not in the way, slap him into the bottom bracket. There we go, beautiful. If he is stiff at all, a little tap with the rubber mallet is going to help. And he is basically there. I'm just going to give him one little, there we go, and the chain on the bottom bracket. Then I'm going to move back around to the non-drive side again. Once again, a little bit of grease. And with my finger, just spread it round. Not too much, just enough. There we go. Before I refit the crank, I'm going to make sure that my little retaining pin is open so I can get it on. And then I've got to make sure that the pedals are in alignment, that they make a nice straight line. Not a difficult job because of the grooves that exist. Once I've got the crank on, I take my cap. He's going to go in again. Just finger screw to start with. If you've got a lot of grease on your fingers, that's not the easiest job in the world. Then I'm going to take my preload tool and again finger tight, and what you'll see is as you tighten him with your fingers, you will actually see the whole system close itself up beautifully. Just get him on, and he's still going. Lovely. So next, just need to make sure that the little locking pin is in, and then I'm going to tighten up the 5mm Allen bolts on each side. I'm not going to do them tight. I'm going to balance. There we go, so I don't over tighten either side. I'm then going to take my torque wrench. Shimano recommend a setting of between 12 and 14 newtons. I've got my torque wrench set at 13, bang smack in the middle, and just like with the Allen key, I'm not going to go all the way. I'm going to do it a little bit at a time, and there we go, a little bit more. Then I'm going to come back round. So I'm doing this in a nice balanced manner. There we go, there's the torque wrench on that side. Should be pretty close to it on this side. Perfect. Just check on this side. There we go. Nice and evenly done. So there we have it. One crankset changed. And I hope you'll agree, not too difficult a job. Really all that's required is a bit of confidence. And of course, I did mean to say 53 when I was talking about the big ring earlier. So if you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already done so, then subscribe to the channel. And there is a link in the description down below to Wiggle. And if you're considering buying some more tools or bits and pieces for your bike, please do consider using that link below, because Real Life Reviews gets a small percentage of everything you spend, and it helps keep the channel going. And hopefully in the near future, we'll have quite a few more how-to videos for you.